playing like a man possessed. Rassie also took it one step further this week.
And so much to talk about. It's not this Rugby Union Show. Welcome back.
Rolling the dice. That has definitely been the theme in the build-up to the second test match between the Springboks and the All Blacks. Rugby Championship on to round 4. And it's been a strange week. It seems a whole lot more muted than in the lead up to the first test at Eden Park, which I think everybody was incredibly excited about. This one, I don't know, Sim. To me, maybe it feels like a lot of the energy was expended on that historic or supposedly near historic win that the Boks would have been fighting for at Eden Park. This time around, it looks like things are calm.
Yeah, I think if you want to look at it, in a way, this week, the two teams will be playing rugby and not playing the occasion. I think that's probably the best way to put it. To just say, it's just going to be pure rugby this week, and nobody's playing against an 87-year-long record, a 50-game record, or whatever the stats that we memorized for last weekend, of which there were many. It's actually, in a strange way, it feels. I look forward to this almost more because, even the writing is just going to be about the rugby. It's not going to be about the occasion. That the record stays. It's us winning there is kind of dead and buried for the foreseeable future. I don't even know when we go back there. Probably next year. But anyway, another that I don't mind this build up. In a strange way, I kind of feel like we've got a better chance to win simply because there's so much less expectation. And it's weird because we're going to Wellington. I feel like, it's weird. I had a chat with one of the players that actually played there, Warren Whiteley, earlier today, for a story. And I kind of asked him, I said, 2018 Wellington, what happened there was a situation where actually the Boks kind of like got the belief that they could win the World Cup by winning that game 36-34, whatever the final score was. It's obviously an epic. We still talk about it to this day. But I kind of felt in a strange way because of the team that Rassie has chosen, the same team that we're saying Rassie's, is rolling the dice on. This may well be, this Wellington may well be that moment that we turn around and we look at it and we go, you know what, that was the moment Rassie sort of drew a line in the sand in terms of this weird sort of battle between South Africa's DNA versus the need to evolve. Kind of like, okay, we're just gonna evolve now. This is it from here on in. And if they do win, suddenly that then says, you know what, let's stop going backwards and kind of going to players that, we've tried and tested, because tried and tested sometimes can be, I think it's an anagram of tired and tested too. So just be careful,
Yeah, no, absolutely. A lot of the talk has been, I think, of the selections has also been muted by the fact that Rassie did his Rassie thing and early. And I must admit, I do see the value in that because it stops becoming a factor. The talk of last week does seem to fade off into the distance, and the focus does become a lot more on these guys that you've selected. There was also a suggestion or two that I read online that Razor also might have just been reacting to Rassie's selection. I think that's crap, I'll be honest. I think both of these guys will select the teams that were duty bound or almost to select regardless of what the other had done. But it was interesting that both sides in rolling the dice seem to have opted for a little bit more of a look towards the future, maybe 2027 in mind. And there's a lot of speed on the field as well, which makes this an interesting one. I mean, it is going to probably be weighted the cake tin, always is. But it's very fascinating to me that they ended up doing almost the same thing in terms of selection.
Yeah, look, I think last week the Boks definitely were a bit reactive in their selections, having waited until Thursday. I think they were a bit reactive, and in a strange way, I feel like it cost them as well. Where Rassie himself said on Monday that he felt sort of waiting until Thursday had cost them was just it messed up their routine. Like suddenly everything was back to front instead of this is what we do on a typical week. We forget as much as some of what happens on a sporting field is spontaneous. The reason you can get to those spontaneous bits is actually based almost exclusively on sticking to structure, until that moment comes up. And so I think, we forget, we just think about the 80 minutes. We forget about the build up. Rassie felt like the build-up was completely messed up in terms of, the team's usual sort of inner workings by sort of naming the team so late. And then apparently the other thing he said was, on Thursday, he usually, he likes to go for a dop because it's the team's day off. And you couldn't go for a dop on Thursday because he had this bloody press conference, to announce his team. He was a bit miffed. It's just like, what? I can't live like this. I can't not have my drink because I got to announce a team, which is quite interesting, I thought. So, as an aside, interestingly enough, actually today he was having a think with the journalists that are there. There aren't many of them, but obviously one of them is my colleague. I don't think he even filed a stitch of copy because he too had to have a drink with Rassie. So this Thursday thing is a bit problematic,
Yeah, it is. That used to always be a Wednesday on tour, so I suppose this is,
used to be a Wednesday,
used to be a Wednesday day off, and then a bit of a practice on Thursday, and then captain's practice on the Friday. Why do you think he's done that? Do you think he's just literally tapering off the physicality? So Thursday, you don't do anything physical. Friday, you've got a captain's run, so you're just going through one or two moves. Is it that simple?
Okay, you're asking me to act like I know what goes on
Like
with the vacancy stuff. But yes, from a logical perspective, what you just said sounds perfectly legit. As in, if they are going to do any heavy lifting, it should be done earlier in the week. And then you kind of like try to be as fresh as you possibly can towards the back end of the week. But that was just me repeating you back to yourself because my essence, knowledge as a middle-aged man who's also like happens to be overweight, maybe not quite up to speed.
Yeah, no, I understand. I do a lot of tapering off. We do have a guest, and I've been
My
looking
entire
forward.
life is tapering off.
Life is tapering off. We do have a guest. He's a great guy. Got to work with him for a while. I know he's standing by, but before we get him to join us, I'm going to ask you, Kaya, to turn your phone horizontally so we can see you better. I don't know if he's going to get this message. We're going to cross through to him and just chat about this the second match. So Kaya, if you can hear me, just turn your phone from this side to this side. Would you like too?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that phone is wide enough to capture all of him these days, yeah.
He's in better nick than me, Shim. Hey, Nangukaya. No, I'm so glad at least we get to see you. Thanks so much for joining.
Now he's muted.
Now
I'm
you're
a little
muted.
skeptical of being on this with Damien. We're going to have to use simple English now.
No. Listen, I wasn't even aware this guy could speak English. As a cause commentator for SuperSport, I was like, hang on, wait, are you sure he can? He can speak English? Because I needed to check. Also, he comes from a high school that we fondly know in the Eastern Cape as as Guicho High. I've never heard an English Guicho, so I don't know.
What did you do to me, Paula? Why must I suffer this?
Surprise. You, the guy you said yes. And in fact, I'm sad we couldn't get to chat to you last week and tie up these two matches because I'd like to have your opinion over the two. But before we get to the rugby, let's settle the Eastern Cape thing once and for all. Because you went back there as well to do some coaching. How's your coaching journey been? Kaya? I know it's something you really enjoyed.
Yeah, I went. I enjoyed it for up until 2022, where I finished off at TUT, and then I've sort of been on a sabbatical for a while, just looking at the landscape, looking at what prospects there are, and also just checking myself, if where my passion still lies, how far I want to get with it, because at some point you get despondent because you kind of hit the ceiling and you're not seeing opportunities further than that. And
Mm.
so I just needed time off to kind of evaluate where I am with it and what I'm like to still achieve with it. But the passion is still in development, helping where the help is most needed. And so I've kind of been working on creating those opportunities to go back to grassroots and help with development, be it on the actual physical coaching itself or motivational talking, that kind of stuff. So I'm somewhere in between there.
Well, I'm sure if you're holding your phone, you're going to get tired. Ngoba siyathetha apha bhuti.
Yeah,
It's gonna.
I want to try to get my phone up quickly. Just give me a sec.
Yeah, no. You do that. The one thing that Kaya mentions, and we'll go back to him shortly, is falling out of love with the game. It's so weird how many times I've heard this conversation with former players, with former coaches. I don't know if it's just because people are becoming more wary of their mental mind state, or if it's just the pressure and the nature of the game of rugby, that those who aren't probably need to also be wary of it, and sabbaticals and time away from the game sometimes seem to do the world of good. I took time away from the game, having left Supersport, and I tell you what, I come back into this so much more refreshed. Is that something you've come across?
Yeah, look, I mean, about the only thing that's kept me around for 25 years is A, needing the money, and then B, the fact that I've actually like not always been in a writing role throughout my career. There was a time I was in management for about 3 to 4 years, and then there was a time I was as a freelancer, which again means you're not writing as often, you're not going to games every single weekend. That stuff can be debilitating. Just a sort of sheer, like, it might be a different stadium, but it's kind of like exactly the same thing all over again. And this the excitement you've almost got to inject into yourself. And I think, I mean, looking at Kaya's situation, sometimes you want the relationship to be a two-way street, instead of you just pouring all your passion into something that feels a little unresponsive. I think for a lot of the guys involved in rugby, sort of particularly coaches, there's such little, there's so little sort of spaces available that you could do incredibly good work, and you kind of like watching the franchises kind of recycle old coaches that they've had before, or appointing sort of convenient guys. Look, I know I'm being political now in terms of judging the actual current franchises, but watching all of that stuff happens, it can feel a bit like you're giving all this love to the game, and the game is giving nothing back to you. At which point, all you can do is just walk away, because, well, why would you keep doing that to yourself, hoping for a different result?
Yeah, no, I've just seen it, heard it so often now, of late, it seems, of guys are saying, I needed to walk away, I just need to breathe, and then maybe come back into it. And opportunities as a coach, Kaya, are incredibly limited. I think people maybe don't have an understanding of just how few chances there are to get involved in something. And I don't know, to my mind, the biggest employers at the moment of coaches are schools, and even those roles are incredibly limited, and they're very hard fought for.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part about it in the business of coaching, is that, like you put it, it's very limited spaces, and the process of qualifying for those spaces, you could do the hard yards, but if School X has decided that they like sim because, the headmaster or the sports master, they've got a relationship from the past, then that job is already earmarked for them. So all the applications is you know, just an exercise. Otherwise, the job is already be earmarked. Who's gonna get into it? And so at some point, I think with me personally, I had to make the decision of giving up the dream of coaching at a higher level. Higher level for me is always being, at provincial, uh, professional level with either URC, Curry Cup, and that. And so I started this rugby journey right at the bottom with development work, tried to build it up through the ranks. I mean, I went to Women's Springboks at one point, was involved with the Lions at Vodacom Cup at one point, and then I went to school route. Then I went the university route. And then I discovered, man, that, bit by bit, the goalpost keeps shifting. And sometimes you take a step back, hoping that you'll make that leap of 5-6 steps, and it just doesn't happen. So I had to honestly reevaluate and find out what is more important to me. And I'm very passionate about helping others more than the accolades. So that's why I'm focused more now on creating something in the development space, especially in underserved communities.
Yeah, no, I think it's just always fascinating to speak to coaches about the challenges they face. And, Sim, I know you were saying you don't want to make anything political out of it, but unfortunately that is a thing. It is a consideration. It's good to see one or two coaches break through, especially at the Lions, at the Bulls as well in the Curry Cup, JB Peterson down in Durban. So, maybe the change is coming, but it certainly has been slow. All right, guys, let's focus in on the All Blacks. It's a massive weekend. We've got the teams here, and I did say right up front where these teams look like both coaches decided we're going to roll the dice, and whatever happens, we're going to score tries. It looks like it's going to be so wide open.
Before we get going, I need to give this man his props. I always give him trouble because his only sin in life is being the same age as me, and kind of like having actually been at school at the same time as I was. Obviously as the first Black African Springbok to play in a test match, Kaya's name in the Eastern Cape sort of like, reverberates, around pretty much even our school, in spite of the fact that we used to tease him mercilessly when he played against us. I mean, this guy has had the main grandstand at Queen's College named after him. And I'm pretty sure when he goes back home to Lady Frey, he's one of those guys, they've probably named kids after him. There's probably lots more kids now with the wrongly spelled Kaya, without the H.
Of course.
There's, he probably, like in Lady Frey, he probably kisses smelly babies.
There must be a Kaya Malotana street at least.
The openings of taverns. this guy, at least.
No, Nyanisile. And sometimes we just go on and we keep having our conversations, and it's almost easy to forget, Kaya, how long ago it was, how very, very different the picture looked for players of color in South Africa, especially Black African players. And at that time, I think even the fact, as Sim says, that there was one of you, people were saying things, there were complaints, there was, who is this guy? Why is he here? How much of that noise did you hear?
Oh, it was a lot, eh? I think for me, it started at school, actually. So I had to get used to it at school level already because I was at St. Andrews College in Grahamstown for a year. And then I went up to Queen's College. Now, Queen's, like Dale, like Selborne, had recently become these Model C schools now, which were your government schools back under apartheid. So it was still heavy, right? The lack of wanting to transition for better English. And so the resistance was heavy. And so moving there and having to prove yourself in an environment where you were told straight that no player of color will ever wear that white jersey, so that Queen's first team jersey is white. And so on arrival, just before rugby trials in my first year there, I was told I'll never smell that jersey. And which was heartbreaking for me because I left St. Andrews. The year I left, the following year, the first team coach at St. Andrews had promised that I was going to play first team for him. He was my Afrikaans teacher. So I went to Queens with this almost chip off my shoulder that I'm first team material, just to get there to be told you won't even look at it. And it was disheartening because I remember the first trial team, my name was up on the board when rugby season starts, was the sixth team. Team number 6, my friend. Not even second, not even third, number 6. I was like, no way. Like the first chance my dad came to see me, I was like, my bags are packed. We can go back to Grahamstown right away. I'm not sticking around for this. And my dad is like, Champ, I understand you are disappointed. I understand you feel like you're starting from scratch. It is what it is. This is what me and your mom, myself and your mom can do for you. Make it work. Otherwise, then don't play rugby. Do something else if it's too much for you. Now, the one challenge I could never break down from was my dad's challenge. I could break down from anybody else's challenge but my father. So when he said make it work or leave it, it's up to you. I was like, now I must make it work. So I started trial 16, and after the first team, I say it's my first season. Then I just gradually got into it, and obviously right through I had to, fight that stigma of you black, you don't belong, After school, it was the same. It was the same narrative. And I just got to a point where I could just close it out and just focus on the job at hand.
Yeah, Bonasim, you've put us in a situation now because now I have to follow up because I think the one thing is maybe somebody who might be watching this and thinking, why is this always a theme? Why is it always a story? Because I think, Kaya, what a lot of people might not understand is that you're talking about just your one move at school level. I would bet my left toe that it happened with your first professional contract. I bet my left toe it happened with your first move from there. I bet my left toe it happened when you moved onto higher honors. It's just a thing that keeps on having to be repeated, and that's quite frustrating for especially a young man.
Yeah, it's more frustrating for me now when I hear the current crop of players having similar stories. Contracts are not the same. Starting from how they get contracted from Craven Week into the Varsity Cup system, from Varsity Cup into provincial system, you get the same phone calls. And now you must try and share your own experiences. And it's actually not fair because things should have moved along. Those kids should be, by now, be measured on what they bring to the field, on the merit of their performance, not who they are first or what school they went to first and that kind of stuff. And we talk transformation, and there are efforts at transforming the sport. And we can never run away from that. But are they enough? Certainly not, because we're not in a situation where players are not doubting their ability because they must first look in the mirror and see what kind of team they are.
Yeah, and then that self-belief is also going to take a knock because confidence is a big part of playing the game. You have to believe in yourself. And once you keep getting knocked backwards over and over again, it's going to affect you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, someone attest to this. You watch a Pelele Fassi, for example, he gets selected. And now all of us are sitting on edge. He must make a mistake. Why is he not free to make mistakes like other players? Because we know if he makes a mistake, the likelihood is that he's not going to get selected the next time. Coaches will dispute that because they've got their game plans, they've got their player management structures, strategies, and whatever you're not. But to the layman on the street, nobody ever watches players of color comfortably without worrying that if they make a mistake or two, then things are definitely going to change. True transformation is for us seeing an Pelele Fassi in the squad, seeing a Sasha Feinberg was in the squad, a Mani Libok in the squad, and all we see is the Springbok squad.
Well, this story has got me thinking about another, which was going to bring up at the end of our conversation after speaking about the teams. But Yabona Gejens, you guys have thrown my plans completely out of whack because there was a breaking story. there was a breaking story this week, which I did want to ask you guys about, which is very heartbreaking for me. And that's the one of Asenati Ntlabakanye, whose career looks like it's now hanging in the balance. But before we do that, let's take a look at this. Hey guys, if you like what you see and you want to support the show, we want you to be part of That Rugby Union Show family. Then just hit the like button, subscribe to the show, tell your friends, make sure you join us every time we're on. Slap that bell harder than Rassie finds loopholes in World Rugby's rulebook. There are new episodes every week. Don't miss it. So now I was told to do that because we've got 15 subscribers to go until we hit 500. So if you're watching this, share it with your friends. Hit the subscribe button as well. We're building a little bit of a family here. We've got a little vibe going. But yeah, gents, just to come back into it, Asenati Ntlabakanye, a second positive test for a I don't want to say it's a banned substance because according to the reporting by Craig Ray of the Daily Maverick, it's not a performance-enhancing drug. And having done a little bit of digging, and I'm not going to say, please quote me on this, it seems like it was for medication that would have helped him with his weight loss. And what makes it incredibly sad is that on both occasions that he was now found to have an adverse ruling on a test, he had consulted a medical specialist, whether it was doctors, apparently in the second instance, 2 doctors. No one picked this thing up. WADA has got very strict rules, though it filtered down to the South African anti-drug organization. They're not going to necessarily bend the rules for anyone. They didn't even do it for Yannick Sinner in the tennis. So now we've got a situation, Sim, where there's a young man, breakout year, made international, got his cap, and he could sit out 2 years at a minimum, 4 at a max, and they like giving maximum to first-time offenders to the anti-doping agencies.
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess if the circumstances are different, by that I mean if he had taken, the stuff independently of medical advice, then you're probably looking at a strict 4 years because of the strict liability rule. So somebody's clearly dropped the ball here, and by the looks of it, it's the medical staff at the Lions. Let me not rush to conclusions in terms of who exactly, but if that is indeed the case, we may all say, oh well, then there's no case for him to answer to. But the oldest rule, and Kaya will tell us this from when he was playing, the oldest rule in as an athlete is that what goes into your body ultimately, you are strictly liable for it. And so that's what, he's going to be, he's going to go down for. And the great irony is that obviously having tested and found the first substance in his system, what happened then was, from what I understand, Asenati was declaring whatever he was taking, probably trying to be helpful to the guys dealing with the case. And while he didn't test positive for the second one, it was identified based on what he was telling them, which then kind of incriminated him. It's one of those, he basically got done for being honest. And by the looks of it, that's the one he's probably going to be banned for. He's literally going to be banned for something he didn't test positive for, which, makes it a very interesting case. And by the sounds of it, seeing how Craig reckons it's going to take 2 years, it sounds like Craig has actually done he's done the research in terms of what's happened in situations like this before. But I mean, if you take all of that legalese and technicalities away, the huge issue here is you've got a guy who we all looked at and we said, if this guy ever sorts, his weight issues out, we've got a generational prop here on our hands, a successor to someone like Frans Malherbe. And, we all loved seeing him at Dan's farm and, working hard and trying to get himself. I mean, I was told that at the Lions that he was literally completely like a man transformed in terms of his willingness to push himself. And, we're now sitting in a situation where what do you think is going to happen over the next 2 years to a guy like that?
Yeah, no, it breaks my heart because that's the difficulty is not very many come back. I don't know, maybe Johan Ackerman, in my mind, was the last one that I remember who served a 2-year ban, still came back and still became a Springbok after that. But besides that, Kaya, I can't think of anybody who spent time on the sidelines. Wendell Saylor did, the Wallaby wing, came back, but then, it just never was able to pick up. Yeah, it wasn't the same player ever again. It's a difficult thing.
Yeah, it is. But then maybe because Prob's only mature at 35, he's still got time on his hands. I don't know. But in itself, it is bad. Well, some guys play till they're 40. But it is sad in itself in the sense that if now he goes and gets pinned for something that he was initially tested for, and in his declaration, being honest, then gets pinned, and then they turn around and they say, well, thank you very much, there's your 2 years. Sounds a little unfair, especially everything that he's taking has been under medical supervision. So it begs the question or necessitates the debate. Saints, do they now need to move towards them picking the physicians that should be able to advise the players? Because as a prop, I'm focused on my technique to scrum. I'm focused on the right muscle groups to get strong so I can scrum properly. I'm not focused on reading what's in the back of a Panado box. There's a doctor to do that, right? So if they say the onus is on me, the athlete, to know what I'm putting in my body, right? Doc, I got a headache. He says, here's a Panado. Why must I question my doctor? You get what I'm saying? So the liability here should then be split. If they're going to pin the player, they must pin the physician who then gave the player the stuff without advising him that in this stuff, there's such and such a product that might be pinned as something that is performance enhancing. Because players are not, even players can do as many workshops and go to all the unions and do all the proper PowerPoint presentations about all the nonsense you're not supposed to take, right? 3/4 of those players are not listening because they're thinking, how am I going to improve my side step? How am I going to improve my jump so I can get in the lineup? That's all they're worried about. There's people in place that are supposed to be advising, put this in your mouth, don't put this in your mouth. If those people fail, who's failing the athletes actually? So it shouldn't be seen to be nailing or going after the athletes. They must be seen to be failing the entire process in terms of who's been advising you on this. If Asenati had come to my house and to complain about a stomach ache, and then I went to the potion my grandmother gave me, and then something happened, it's a different story.
Yeah.
But in this instance, I think the medical professionals must also take some of the responsibility.
Well, it sounds like the names of the doctors involved haven't yet been released or announced, but it sounds and it looks that might happen. And I think there's going to be big implications. Campo 675 with a comment here saying, at least he's still young. He is, especially for a prop. But, it's not just 2 years of inaction and not necessarily getting the right type of workouts. It's 2 years of stunted development as a player. But just I did say we need to get to this match. Okay, here we go. We'll start with the All Blacks. And Sim, I did say it looked like the roll of a dice. There's a couple of changes starting up front. Those guys those front rowers who were on the bench last week are going to be starting this time around. He's kept with Scott Barrett, Tupovai. Simon Parker was incredible last week, and Adi Surveyor was probably not as good as Adi Surveyor could be, and we saw what Wallace Atiti has done. I don't fault him for those selections.
Yeah, look, I mean, Takiaho, has given us trouble before. I remember Ellis Park. I can't remember which year. It might have been 2022. He was more than a handful, especially on the carry. Terrell Lomax, he can scrum, and he's got beautiful hands for a prop, especially a tight head prop. And then those are the names that stick out. And then obviously amongst the backs, Leroy Carter, who's who's more well known to South African sort of audiences as a sevens guy, has suddenly joined in. That's a fair bit of speed. And then Will Jordan talk about speed, moves from fullback to wing. So whoever's playing on the left wing, and I think it's Ethan Hooker. So Ethan Hooker's got his he's got his work cut out for him, because I think Will has scored something like 43 tries in 45 matches. And that's dangerous. And then obviously, I mean, D-Mac then moves to fullback, which is pretty much where he finished the game, because Narrower, got injured not long after scoring, that opening try to the game. So, but obviously the other name that sticks out is Noah Hotham. I just did a quick look. He's got 2 caps, and over and above that, he's a 94 kilo scrum half, who is about my height. So that makes him a biggish guy. So Kobus Reinach might have his hands full too. So I think they've gone, there's a mix of sort of speed and physicality in how they've chosen.
Yeah, Kaya, Will Jordan going back to the wing. I said last week that I thought that he's more effective on the wing, and he then went and silenced me by scoring a try from fullback. But I still stand by that. I still think I prefer Will Jordan playing on the wing. And there's a nice little oddity and a little competition that's building up with Jordan facing the young hooker on the South African side, and then Carter up against Cheston Colby on the Springbok side. It's quite a mismatch in terms of experience.
I think Razor was probably looking at how to go like for like with the Springboks in certain instances. And I think, Cheslin, Kirtley, all these guys, Ed Wolf and Amavra as well, you look at their success on the wing, being diminutive figures, according to Rugby Fundis about size. So he's always been looking for a solution to a Cheslin Colby within the All Blacks ranks. Rico Ioane, they've tried. He really hasn't successfully shifted to wing for what it was expected. Caleb Clark, with his injuries, being out of form has been a problem as well. So Leroy Carter kind of answers the question or gives them a like for like with Colby. So I'm sure they'll be excited to see how he goes on the wing. Ethan Hooker, on the other hand, Ethan is a 13 out and outright who can play wing properly, like what Will Jordan is, a fullback that can play wing properly. And so my little concern there is having a Damian Villains, Kenan Moody as your center pairing. Coming on the defense side, more than attack. Defensively, that could be a problem for us, because you've got 2 wings defending next to each other, right? In Kenan on the 13 now and Ethan on the wing. How are they going to be able to read that pressure defense? Because remember, we are not willing. We're not willing to give up our rush defense. And so will they have had enough time to study and understand does Kenan Moody understand rush defense from a 13, for example? So those are the questions that are going to be key for me. And I think why Scott Robinson was apprehensive in trying out a Tupaia, for example, instead of Jody Barrett to start, was to take a combination that's already had experience against an inexperienced combination. Try and put that pressure up early in the game, and then he can make his changes from the bench, seeing if we fall apart or improve.
Well, it's good to have a bona fide center. No, go ahead, Sam. Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on that. Wouldn't, and I know this is a classical layman's question, wouldn't the simple solution then, if you're worried about the defense, wouldn't the simple solution be for them to swap positions? This is Ethan and Kanan. Just basically swap positions. One goes to 13 where, you would expect.
This is not border rugby, bro. This is not border rugby where you swap positions during the game. The coaches have decided this is how we're going. Now we need to stick to it. When we played at the Bulldogs, you would change from right wing to left wing without telling the coach, or you'd change from 11 to 12, and the coach sees it working and he's happy.
Hang on. Andre says in that game against Italy, in In defense, I think he was playing. In defense, I think he was playing. He was playing center, and in attack, he was playing as a flank. So it has been done before.
It was practiced. Whether you talking about changing in the game, that's not gonna happen.
No. He did it in the game, in the 45-0 game, because Jasper was gone.
Yeah, it would have been practiced, Galoko. Yeah, you're not gonna do things that are not practiced, my friend. When you get dropped, you can't come and say no. On seniority, Kanan told me to move. You can't be saying that.
You're going to lose your job. Campo says if he would have felt better with Andre at 12 and Ethan at 13. I don't know. I also hear why you say that. I understand why, but I also want to see Damian Willems have a go. I mean, he just hasn't come back into it yet. He's been out for a long time. We know this. We know what he's capable of, but he still needs to find his mojo again.
Yeah, look, the other thing I tend to think is, if we are gonna sort of draw a line in the sand and go, okay, we are giving this Tony Ball thing a proper go. One of the things that's gonna come in for a heavy debate is what to do with our 12. Tony, for all his, Tony comes from a history of, the 12 being an additional playmaker or the second playmaker. And I'm not saying that's how he sees rugby now. Actually, funnily enough, he's the same guy that has actually said these days in test rugby, the 15 tends to be, the other creator as opposed to the 12, whereas the 12 kind of like has that role to take it up. So what I'm saying is, if we go down that path, maybe, one of the things we need to then look into is a passing 12, distributing 12. And we've all spoken about what is Damian Willems' best position. And a lot of people have said, obviously not 10, but, some people like him at 15 and others like him at 12. I remember speaking to Davy Sneeman at the Stormers. And I said to him, okay, well, what's his best position? He said, no, his best position is rugby player. As long as you've got him on the field, you're good, which is nice, but you can't have him everywhere. And then I said to him, okay, you personally, where would you prefer to have him? He says, I'd much rather have him at 12, because even though he's not going to sort of like knock people over taking the ball up, he is going to use, his feet to sort of, get that go forward. And then obviously he's got the distribution in his locker, probably a lot more speed than either Andre Esterhuizen and Damien Dialende. But, again, I have to bow to Kaya's superior knowledge, particularly at center, when, you sit there and you think, this is two guys. One is being off color. This is Damian Willems, and the other one is still learning the ropes at 13. I mean, I know he's an ex-13 from school, but he's still learning the ropes at this level. And then, they've never played together before, so you don't know what the combination is going to be like. I remember a Esterhuizen and Ken and Moody combination against the All Blacks at Twickenham in that warm-up to the World Cup working perfectly. Yeah. You've got Esterhuizen in the 23, so maybe you could have gone in that direction, like Campo says. So it's quite a tricky one, because you want to see something different, especially after last week. But, then the question becomes, is this something different that you want to see?
Yeah, well, let's put up that Springbok squad while we delve into especially that dilemma. And, Kaya, you mentioned Kanan defending at 13. I mean, that position intimately. The one thing about Kanan's personality is he's one of those soft-spoken guys. He's a very quiet boy. And, what I know about the 13 defensively is you got to have a big mouth, man. You have to orchestrate things. You have to shout at people. You got to communicate from the outside in. But I suppose that'll be something that he'll have been working on just with the coaches, not just at the Boks, but at the Bulls as well.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful that that's a skill set that all the coaches have been able to help him with. Because like you say, if you're defending at 13, you linking your inside defense with your outside defense. So effectively, for a successful rush defense, your 13 needs to be leading it. Well, that's why for the longest time when Springbok blitz defense has been successful, you'll hear a lot of the time that Jesse gets credited for that because it is his decision making that allows the rush defense to happen successfully or it makes it fail. So for somebody who is not going to be as vocal in that position, jeopardizes the whole system because now your wing who needs to then move up with you if you're going to employ the rush defense or needs to hand back if you're going to buy time to employ the drift defense. If that 13 is a quiet person, you're putting your wing in no man's land. And, All Blacks are very good in getting the ball into that outside space, especially when it's disjointed and there's lack of communication. So I'm hoping that it's something they've worked really hard on to make sure that he can implement that. Attacking-wise, again, Damien at 12. Damien, we know, is always looking to create first before he makes other people play. He wants to do something first. Will Kanan have adjusted and have learned to instinctively know the supporting lines? He needs to run when Damien's got the ball. So that disjointedness could be a bit of a problem in our attack. Otherwise, the backline selected says, Tony, you've got license to have a go and let's see what these guys can do. I'm a little disappointed that it's been now, it's a second season. And we've never from the get-go just went for broke and said, this is how we're going to play. And we'll take confidence that we'll take the knocks along the way, but come the World Cup 2027, we'll be one of the best attacking teams in the world. We've tried to balance a mix of the two. And I think this season we're being caught between the two games we're trying to play, where now uncertainty is creeping in. So the players are not quite sure, now do we have a go? Now do we go direct? What is the situation? So for me, they need to iron that out as quickly as possible. And if they can give these guys carte blanche, go all broke, we're not worried about the score, and then they can be free to attack, I think they might just succeed.
Yeah, and it makes me really think about the bench. I'm looking at All in the Game's comment there saying a pacey and creative SA 10, 12, 13 midfield combo. Very pacey, he says. Backline overall. Pollard, the Allen, the Creel midfield looks so much more pragmatic in comparison. And that what fascinates me, Sim, is that he's got Mani Libok on the bench. We always talk about having Andre as the insurance policy, as it were. So even if things don't work out for Sasha and Mani comes on early, it's still going to be, by the nature of the way that Mani plays, an open game. It's still going to be, I suppose, leaning towards Tony ball. I hate to use the term because it doesn't encapsulate everything.
Listen, as a member of the media, I don't mind using that term at all. We've always got to dress things up. It doesn't hear you can't just call it, Bok rugby. No. You've got to give it a catchy name. It's going to be a bomb squad. It's going to be a nuke squad. You gotta give it something. So I'm happy with that. Look, I like the idea of Mani on the bench. The reason I like the idea of Mani on the bench, I still believe. This is one of those weird ones where I think Sasha's definitely going to be the guy to start for the Boks in 2027 at the World Cup. I mean, in terms of his skill set, he's the balance of, he's a balance between Pollard and Amani. But right here, right now, if you want one of our flyers who knows how to play Tony ball particularly well, or who's the best exponent of it, I'd have to say it's Mani. So it's good to have a guy like that. If you've decided to play like that, then you need to have a guy like that on the bench, if things don't go quite well for Sasha, because Sasha is still kind of like at this weird stage of, he's almost like, where Dievel Brevis was, a youngster with prodigious talent, all these shots for the same ball and trying to play all of them at the same time. So he's still kind of like at that stage where he seems to be a bit clouded in terms of, there's no clarity in terms of how he wants to do it. And Kaya will tell you at that test level, you will be punished for that thing. And so I just think you've got the right guy there. And if I take you back again, the times that the Boks have played well with Mani at 10 have actually been with Andre Esterhuizen as his bodyguard next to him at inside center. So I imagine when that change does take place, those two will go on at the same time. specifically also looking at the fact that someone like Damian Willems said, probably hasn't played a full game in I don't know how long, and they're not sure, quite how he's going to play in the game anyway. So I think I like the bench the way it is. I think like all self-respecting South Africans, I'm still sort of crying a little bit for the bomb squad, but it is what it is. But
We do have
if
a
I
bomb
were
squad,
to
sir.
ask a question,
We do. There's Andre Esterhuizen. Is it a bomb squad, Kaya?
sorry, it's a bomb squad in disguise.
5-3-6-2 split. We have a 5-3-6-2 split before this game, my friend. And I won't be shocked if Sasha moves to 12 and Mani to 10 to race Willems, because I don't think Damien is going to give us 80 minutes anyway.
Yeah. No, actually, I think what's going to happen is Sasha will go to 15. And then Andre and Mani will come on probably at the same time. Actually, and Grimes as well. All three of them at the same time. And then Damien goes back to the bench. But guys, hang on. We need to talk about the forwards. There's two things I want to ask Kaya in terms of what he thinks about. Just that lock pairing. Leroy Carter and Ruan Roquier. They've broken up. They've broken up the Blood Brothers Part 2, which is obviously Eben and Leroy. They've broken that up, but now they've put Leroy at number 4. When last have we even seen Leroy play 4? Because he's been a 5 for so long in South African rugby. And then obviously kind of the other part I want you to talk about. Jasper's finally back. He owes us a lot because we suffered in his absence. Just your thoughts on on those two sort of subtle changes for the Boks.
Yeah, firstly, let's start with the second row. The way they want to use Leroy there, obviously needing Ruan to also be there. And Ruan, the role he plays at the Bulls, not just scrumming down, but the lineout general that he is. They obviously felt that there was a slight improvement with the lineouts, having him back in the mix. This is Ruan Roquier now. So moving Leroy around was more for me to make space and make sure that Ruan Roquier still makes the team so that they can continue improving on that lineout. If it's going to work in the scrum, I'm not sure. We'll have to see, because now take into consideration that Reza has made the changes in the front row that he's made with the props. Because remember, when they were suffering in the scrum, he made those changes and it kind of steadied a bit, but they were still at Wilco to come on. So we were able to assert that dominance again. So whether that combination now in that second row is going to be effective for the front row in the scrum remains to be seen. But I think the confidence that Don has with Ox leading the charge at loose head, I think they would have felt comfortable making that reshuffling around there. Now the loose trio combination, yes, that would have been our combination throughout the championship. Had Jasper been more disciplined. And so him coming back is twofold. It could be no pressure on him. Obviously from the conference, and my jersey has been waiting for me. Nobody's really picked it up and is going to make me work for it. And so you could then play with confidence as a result of that. Or it could totally bomb out and he would have a terrible day because he's trying to make amends for what he might believe he owes everybody and the squad. So hopefully the energy for him coming back will be right, on a personal level, that he does his basics first, gets back into it, and then just build from there. And it might just work for us. And we need it to work for us. We need our loose trio to be monumental on Saturday if we're going to turn things around. Peter Steph is not back to that universal soldier we've known him to be, especially against the All Blacks. So of a coaching perspective, funny enough, my thought would have been to try bring Peter Steph back to form from the second row, right? And because you've got a workhorse, you've got agility, you've got somebody who's going to cover the field for you for 80 minutes whilst he's still getting his form back. I would have gone that route, but anyway, they're giving him another chance off the side of the scrum. Let's hope he continues to grow in the way that we know him to play. Sia's role has been monumental, and I think This is a game where I believe we should play Sia deep into the game. 70th minute, maybe then look at taking him off if he's going to come off for Kwaha. But I know Kwaha will be watching how Jasper is going to go in his first game back.
Yeah, no, that Kwaka selection has been wondering if Jasper is going to maybe play an hour, maybe 60 minutes. I would prefer for him to play longer. And my reasoning for that is that if you tell Jasper he's got 60 minutes to make a difference, he's going to throw his body around. He is going to have scant disregard for anything, anyone, or himself. And you speak about the discipline. It's been a problem. And, you know, it was a problem before needing to prove himself in the same sense that you say he needs to now. So I am slightly worried that he's going to go a little bit too hard, which we want to see in an All Blacks test, obviously. But geez, those penalties that he's given away, they're stacking up. And I understand why, because of the kind of player he is.
Yeah, look, he's. I would be incredibly disappointed if he went back and, you know, if he gave penalty. Basically, if he pulled a Dean Grayling, let me put it that way, because I think that's
one of
the worst things anyone's ever done in New Zealand. Oh wait, there's a bikies with Jimmy Cowan. Okay, let me get off this train.
The headbutt from behind.
Yes, that. Look, I would be incredibly disappointed, because then the bigger message becomes, hang on, wait, are you sure you want to win big things with a guy like this? You know, that's, you know, the Boks talk about the team all the time, giving your all for the team. And a big part of giving your all for the team is being disciplined as well. You know, that's part of it. And, you know, not getting provoked by, you know, by Italians, you know, guys you beating, you know, 45-0 in the end. You know, so if he somehow comes back and, you know, the penalties stack up again, or he does something that gets him sent off, then maybe the bigger question becomes, is Jasper our number 8, you know, going to the next World Cup? I know it's a difficult question to ask, because Jasper's one of those incredible players in that, you know, he is a one-trick pony, but it's one hell of a trick. You know, like if Jasper carries, you know, the ball stays carried. That's just the way it is. There's no, you know, like, that's why guys like Ivan Roos, you know, it's a big struggle, because he's probably also kind of like a bit of a, you know, a one-trick pony, but, you know, he just doesn't have the same bang as, you know, as someone like Jasper. Jasper just, you know, like, you know, grown men just take one look at Jasper coming and they wince, and they're like, nah, I don't want to be in this guy's way. So, you know, it would be a pity to lose a guy like that. But genuinely, if he somehow gets himself sent off this weekend, then we've got some thinking to do about whether he's the right number 8 for this team going forward.
In his defense, apparently the Italian guy said he makes better brocchi than him.
Yeah, listen, that's just offensive. That's just offensive.
Just trying to make start World War III.
By the way, Kaya answering the loose trio question, he delved into something that maybe our viewers on this channel are almost completely oblivious to, which is the nicknames that, you know, the poor players have. You know, it's almost like the underground nicknames that they have from the commentary. And you're like, I think I should share just a few, just to, you know, to get them sort of tuned into what is being said. So many of the times when they hear Kaya and Black Mtimka sort of going off, you know, so Frans Malherbe is Bud Spencer because, well, he looks like him.
He looks like Bud Spencer.
Franco Moster, I've always loved this one. I actually told him about this. I said, you know, he's 440, as in milliliters, because he's neither a dumpy nor a quart. You know, he's like in between. So as a utility floor. Yeah, so he's a 440. And Kwagga Smith is, you know, is obviously you know, like Wrong Turn, because he looks like the guy from Wrong Turn. I don't know if you guys want to carry on with some of the nicknames, because like
is that nose? Is that nose?
Is the nose is it?
But no, man,
I think we need to. I think we need to compile a list and do our next Springbok lineup with just the nicknames.
Ask him what you call Zuna. See what's a night in Tlabagay.
No, Asenati.
No, it's not me. It's you guys. You guys call him that, yes. Because that yes is the big fella.
Conduct. Conduct.
Listen, guys.
Oh my.
Listen, we've been on for an hour. We're gonna have to call it. But before we do, there was a question here. All in the game asked a question earlier when we were talking about the centers, and it was: is at 13 no longer an option? Has been injured, but I know he's on the mend, and he was part of the greatest Springbok squad. Do you have any insights, Sim or Kaya, into Lukhanyo and what the season holds for him?
Well, he actually played for the Sharks. I don't know. I think it was actually the Sharks proper against the visiting Saracens team. This past week.
The Sharks education.
Yeah,
the Saracens preseason.
So he is back. He is back on a rugby field, but that was literally the first time he was back following his knee injury. So I would imagine he's got a long way.
I think they might focus on 12, Jason.
What you're saying? I'm focused on 12.
Yeah, I'm thinking age and the injuries come back from. Rather use that experience at 12. Because I'm not sure he's going to be able to pick up the pace to play 13 again.
I see. Well, that also makes sense. Because he's always been a creator anyway. I remember talking to someone who said he takes more pride in putting people away than actually himself. And you get a lot of, you get two types of 13s. You get 13s who like putting people away, or you get 13s who like to strike. Like, say, Danny Khadba, Jacques Fourie. Those guys like to actually strike themselves instead of, putting others away. Conrad Smith, probably another guy that used to put people away instead. So, I understood that he fell under that category, which is probably why he was so disappointed when Pumpy didn't recognize his congratulations all those years ago. 2019. It's like,
No, and it's ironic because played so much of his rugby on the wing before he moved into 13. But it's a good point, Kaya, because also the Sharks, looking at the URC, will have Ethan Hooker to fill in that 13 berth as well. So, yeah. Maybe there's the
boogeyman is bubbling on the sides there. He's raring to go. He just needs an opportunity.
Right.
That's another issue.
Right.
Actually, I think the Sharks are suddenly looking good for centers because you've got Hazen, you've got Ethan Hooker, and you've got the boogeyman. Between those four, I think you're pretty much well taken care of, which is why you probably end up with a situation where Hooker's on the wing so many times. I think that there are so many people that think Ethan Hooker's a wing, even though actually, he was a center pretty much throughout his, his high school career.
I've been threatening to call this chat for a long time now, but before I do, what I saw, bookkeepers are calling this one All Blacks by 4, but maybe it's New Zealand bookkeepers, because I look at this match and just final thoughts, Kaya. I think the Boks will kick themselves if they don't win this one, as was the case last week.
The Springboks, for me, the entire campaign has been disappointing, if I must be honest. They just have not kicked on. There's just something that's lacking. So for me, I feel like this is a season where they've come to a plateau in how they've been able to control games. And now they just need to figure out what the next gear is to climb the next hill. So do I see them climbing getting onto that hill this weekend? Too many changes, and the personnel they have, they will have to play a different game. So I expect more mistakes, those handling errors. And so the All Blacks by 4 is not a bad call. So I'll stick to around about 4-7, between 4 and 7 to the All Blacks.
Either way, it's going to be a close one.
Don't lynch me.
Can I disagree? Because Dalians and Queenians have to disagree. Just not. Listen.
Queenians always win.
Listen. Well, there is that. Listen, the only way this 4 to 7 point thing comes right is if that bookie is Hansi's bookie, okay? I'm telling you this for free. So I don't like I'm not so chuffed about the All Blacks' bench as I thought they had a better bench on paper than we did, even though actually our bench played well last weekend. I genuinely don't this time around. I think they kind of like start heavy as opposed to nicely balanced throughout the team. I think when it comes to it, they'll be found a bit wanting because we'll be able to take the game away, and you know they won't be. So yeah, actually, I think the Boks are going to win. I won't tell you, but I'm going to call
no. I'm going to call the Boks for this one as well because I also think that they can finish strong in that bench, and if there's a need to accelerate, then they probably can. Anyway, Campo there says Boks by 10. Yo, I love your confidence. I hope you're right. Kaya, thank you so much, but it's been absolute pleasure catching up. I hope we can do this again. Paul says he's going to send you some ice for your arm. We're just holding.
No, I'll be better prepared next time. I think some try to do some black magic that I don't appear today. That's why I ended up being sent for note 5 minutes before we started.
Listen, blame it all on the black guy with dreadlocks, you know, because it's the easy thing to do.
There you go. I knew it.
Victim. Oh, this guy Kaya. I really appreciate you, Sim. We'll catch up on Sunday. Let's hope the Boks win. Thanks very much, everyone, for the comments. Share this. Don't forget, we are chasing that target. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. See you then. Cheers. Hey guys, if you like what you see and you want to support the show, we want you to be part of That Rugby Union Show family. Then just hit the like button, subscribe to the show, tell your friends, make sure you join us every time we're on. Slap that bell harder than Rassie finds loopholes in World Rugby's rulebook. There are new episodes every week. Don't miss it.
In a country where 83 people are murdered every day, knowing the minds of killers isn't curiosity, it's survival. Subscribe to Profiler Africa now. It's free. Or become a member and help keep the channel alive. Remember, trust nobody.
Welcome back to That Rugby Union Show. Well, what a week it's been.
He's playing like a man possessed.
And so much to talk about. It's not this Rugby Union Show. It's That Rugby Union Show.
So